You ever hit that point in the day where you feel like gravity just got stronger? Like your body isn't tired from moving. It's tired from existing. You're not sprinting, not climbing mountains, not running marathons. You're just awake. And somehow, that alone feels like a full-time job. But here's the plot twist. Most of the time, you're not tired because you're doing too much. You're tired because you're holding on to too much. Thoughts, fear, conversations you had 5 days ago, expectations you think people have of you. You're trying to be everything, fix everything, prove everything all at once. It's like carrying 12 invisible backpacks, then wondering why your shoulders hurt. And here's the wild part. Half of what you're carrying, you didn't even choose. You just picked it up along the way. Something your parents said, something society expects, something your old self promised out of survival, not truth. And now, here you are, sitting in a quiet room doing absolutely nothing, and still feeling like you ran a marathon with your soul duct taped together. This isn't burnout, it's emotional weight. It's the mental muscle of holding on when you don't have to. And the truth is, letting go isn't about quitting. It's about freeing up space for who you actually are underneath the noise. Let's talk about how you start dropping that weight piece by piece without feeling like your entire identity is crumbling in the process. One of the most exhausting things about holding on is that you get really good at it. Like, weirdly good. You start thinking it's normal. You don't even realize your jaw's always clenched. You don't notice how your breathing's shallow. You've been walking around in emotional fight or flight for so long, it just feels like your default setting. And here's the kicker. The world actually rewards you for it. They'll call you strong. They'll say you're resilient. They'll admire how you keep going no matter what. But they don't see that you're not really okay. You're just well practiced in pretending. Because most people don't ask how you're holding everything together. They just get comfortable with you being the one who always does. You could be 2 thoughts away from emotionally short-circuiting, and people will still ask you to show up, fix things, carry more, be the steady one, because you're so good at it. And somewhere in that mess, you confuse being overwhelmed with being capable. You think, well, if I can carry it, maybe I should. But that's not strength. That's emotional self-abandonment dressed up as responsibility. And let's not ignore the subtle fear that comes with letting go, because it's real. There's a part of you that believes, if I stop carrying this, everything will fall apart. Your relationships, your routines, your image, maybe even your sense of identity. You've built so much of your life around tension that relaxation actually feels suspicious. Peace feels like weakness. Stillness feels like failure. Rest feels like giving up. But it's not. It's your nervous system asking for a timeout. It's your soul trying to remind you that you weren't built to carry the entire universe in your back pocket. You were never meant to hold it all. You just learned to do it because nobody else could or would. But holding on doesn't make you whole. Letting go does. Letting go of the pressure to be everything. Letting go of outdated expectations. Letting go of the idea that you'll only be loved if you're useful, perfect, or unbreakable. And when you finally stop clutching every little piece of life so tightly, something magical starts to happen. You feel lighter, not because the world changed, but because you did. You stopped gripping it like it was out to get you and started trusting yourself to move through it instead. One of the quietest lies we grow up believing is that tension equals effort. That if you're not bracing, stressing, anticipating, you must not care enough. So you walk through life with your mental fists clenched, always analyzing the room, reading people's energy before they even speak, planning how you'll respond in conversations that haven't happened yet, anticipating disappointment just so it won't catch you off guard. But that kind of living, that's not presence, that's surveillance. You're not in the moment, you're managing it. You're scanning every emotional corner of your life like there's a fire alarm you're responsible for. Even when nothing's burning. And the cost of this? You rarely experience your life directly. You experience it through layers of preparation, protection, overthinking, and emotional backup plans. You laugh, but you're a little guarded. You relax, but not fully. You receive love, but only halfway, because you're always halfway on the edge of losing it. That's the kind of exhaustion people don't talk about. Not the physical kind, but the energetic kind. The tiredness that lives in your chest, the weight behind your eyes, the dullness that creeps into even the best parts of your day, not because your life is bad, but because you never actually put the weight down long enough to enjoy it. And at some point, you have to ask, what am I trying so hard to hold together? Is it a version of yourself you outgrew but still feel responsible for? Is it a relationship you're afraid to lose, even though it quietly drains you? Is it an image, a role, a reputation that no longer feels true but still feels necessary? Sometimes we don't let go because we don't want to deal with the questions that rise up in the empty space, because silence brings clarity, and clarity brings change. And change, even good change, is scary when you've wrapped your identity in being needed, being useful, being the strong one. But here's what's even scarier: staying in a version of yourself that's only being kept alive by habit and fear. You don't need to hold it all to be whole. You don't need to grip life so tightly to be safe. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is exhale, not just from your lungs, but from your soul. Because real peace doesn't require everything around you to calm down. It just asks you to stop fighting what was never yours to carry. There's a strange moment that happens when you realize what was once just a coping mechanism has now become your personality. You didn't mean for it to happen. You didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to base my entire life on tension. But slowly, over time, it creeps in. You hold back your opinions to keep the peace. You hold space for others while quietly denying your own needs. You hold your emotions behind tight smiles and polite nods. You've been holding on so long that it doesn't even feel like holding anymore. It just feels like you. And that's the part that's hard to admit. That maybe you're not tired because life is unfair or overwhelming. Maybe you're tired because you've been stuck in emergency mode long after the emergency ended. The mindset that once helped you survive never got the memo that it's safe now, so it keeps running. Your nervous system stays alert, your habits stay defensive, and your inner voice whispers things like, don't relax, it's not safe yet. Even when everything around you is quiet. And when someone tells you to let go, it doesn't feel like advice. It feels like a threat, because letting go isn't easy when your grip has become your anchor. But here's something worth thinking about. If holding on costs you your peace, your clarity, and your connection to life, then maybe it's not helping you anymore. Maybe it's not discipline. Maybe it's just fear dressed up as responsibility. And fear has a way of convincing you that without it, you'll fall apart. But the truth is, you're not falling apart. You're being asked to shed, to release the weight of who you had to be so you can meet who you actually are underneath all the survival. And no, it won't happen overnight. But letting go doesn't require a dramatic release. Sometimes it just starts with a moment, a pause where you let your shoulders drop, your breath deepen, and your body realize, we're not in danger anymore. That's the real shift. Not fighting to escape, but realizing you don't have to fight at all. Not forcing freedom, but remembering it was always yours to begin with. Somewhere along the way, we started associating heaviness with meaning. If it's heavy, it must be important. If it hurts, it must be real. If it's complicated, it must be serious. And if we're tired, well, that just means we're trying, right? But not all weight is meaningful. Not all struggle is necessary. Sometimes, we carry things not because they add depth to our lives, but because we don't know who we are without them. We've confused emotional clutter with identity. We've built routines around being overwhelmed. And the thought of lightness, it almost Feels suspicious because lightness means less control. Lightness means ease. Lightness means you might not have to grip so hard anymore. And that's terrifying when your whole world was built on control and overfunctioning. That's why so many people self-sabotage peace. Not because they don't want it, but because they don't recognize it. They've gotten used to the emotional noise, the tension in the background, the low hum of something's not right, even when everything seems fine. So when things actually do start to go well, it feels too quiet, too calm, too unfamiliar. And that's when the mind starts creating new problems. Because if you've lived in chaos long enough, silence feels like something must be wrong. But this is exactly where everything starts to shift. When you stop confusing effort with purpose and finally realize that peace isn't the absence of effort, it's the presence of alignment. You don't need more discipline. You don't need to push harder, do more, prove something. You just need to stop rehearsing resistance as if it's your job. Because life isn't asking you to carry all of this. It's asking you to be awake for it, to be present, clear, open, not exhausted from trying, to control outcomes you were never meant to hold. And the moment you allow yourself to experience the unfamiliar feeling of lightness, even just for a second, you'll realize it was never a weakness to feel free. You were just too weighed down to remember what it felt like. There's something no one really tells you about letting go. It's not always dramatic. It's not some big cinematic moment where you drop everything and walk away enlightened. Most of the time, letting go feels quiet, almost invisible, anticlimactic. It's the moment you stop justifying what's no longer working. It's when you stop trying to make the heavy things feel worth carrying. It's that breath you take, not because everything's perfect, but because for once you're not trying to fix what doesn't need to be fixed. And when that moment happens, you don't feel powerful. You feel unfamiliar, because when you've spent so much of your life managing, holding, balancing, the first time you truly relax, you almost feel lost. Not because something's wrong, but because you've never met this version of yourself before. The one that's not bracing, not gripping, not overthinking. This is where you meet your real energy. The version of you that's not tired, the one that's not held together by tension, the one that doesn't define their worth by what they carry. You start to realize maybe you were never actually broken. Maybe you were just tired from carrying pieces that didn't belong to you. And when that hits, something shifts quietly but permanently. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What have I been holding on to that I don't need anymore?" That's the doorway, not to perfection, but to peace. And you don't need to force it. Just walk through, one small release at a time. You don't have to reinvent yourself to find peace. You just have to stop dragging around the version of you that was built for survival. That version of you, the one that stays quiet to avoid conflict, that overthinks every word before sending a simple text, that walks into rooms scanning for safety instead of connection. They were never broken. They were just adaptive. You became who you needed to be, given what you went through. But that doesn't mean you have to keep being that person forever. Letting go doesn't mean erasing everything. It means editing. It means releasing old scripts that no longer serve the life you actually want to live now. It means updating your emotional operating system, not because the old version failed, but because you've outgrown it. And that's the part no one sees. From the outside, you might look the same. Still show up, still smile, still get things done. But on the inside, there's a quiet revolution happening. You're no longer performing peace. You're living it. You're no longer keeping it together. You're letting it unfold, not perfectly, not all at once, but honestly. And honesty is exhausting at first, because when you stop pretending to be okay, you start noticing all the places where you weren't. And that awareness, it stings. You might feel more emotional. You might cry more than usual. You might feel like you're unraveling. But that's not the collapse. That's the release. That's what happens when the emotional dam starts to break and all the feelings you packed away finally get to breathe. It's messy, but it's also sacred, because for the first time in a long time, you're not pushing yourself through your own life like it's a job. You're moving with it, feeling it, choosing it. And when you get there, to that space where peace is no longer something you chase, but something you allow, life stops feeling like something you have to conquer. It becomes something you get to witness, something you get to meet fully, without all the armor. And maybe for the first time, being alive doesn't feel so heavy anymore. If you made it this far, drop "I'm not tired anymore" in the comments so I know you felt this, not just heard it. This space is for you, and you're exactly where you need to be.